Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 8th installment of this show, Playing to Win, Practitioner's Insight with my dear friend, Roger Martin. Welcome today, Roger.
Yeah, it's great to be back.
Today, we're going to talk, we've unpacked so many things, but if you are new to this show and you're sort of going, what are they talking about? You may want to listen to this one, of course, but we have 7 others that you may want to go back and get you to this point, because we're going to refer to some things that were in the previous shows, but we'll make sure we cover those off. But today is about where to start with strategy, because we've talked a lot about the difference between strategy and planning, what goes into it. And that strategy is a series of choices, which is absolutely kind of one of Roger's pillars. But I love the statement that he makes, do versus say in strategy. So let's start there. What do you think, Roger?
Yes, sure. So the best place to start with strategy is what your strategy currently is. And lots of people will say, we don't have one, Roger. We need a strategy. We don't have one. And the thing I've got to explain to them is, no, you have a strategy. Strategy is what you're doing. And the results you're getting that might cause you to think we need a strategy are a result of all of those choices. You've made a whole bunch of choices to do this, to invest in that, to hire this kind of people, to advertise this way, to build these factories, whatever it is. All those things interact with the competitive environment, right? Your competition, consumers, distribution channel, if you have one, suppliers, whatever. It's interacting with those to produce your current results. So the best place to start with strategy is what it currently is. Because if you start without that knowledge, you're not going to be able to better yourself, and you'll get lost and confused.
Yeah, there's a great quote that I used in, don't remember if it was Growth IQ or Experience Mindset. Yeah. I think it was Growth IQ.
Yes.
And it was from Jeff Bezos. And he said, the success of today is because of decisions we made 18 months or 24 months ago, yes, not decisions we made last week.
Yes.
And I think that sometimes people lose sight of the fact that those choices and decisions take time to play out.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's less, unless it's like, we're going to close this plant and we're closing it tomorrow. Like, yes, okay. In a rare, moment where, yep, you could actually fix, or we're going to let go of 10 people, like that happens instantaneously. But if you're like, we want to increase brand awareness, or we want to launch a new product, or, we're going to enhance our support and services, or we're going to change our distribution or supply chain model, like those things don't turn on a dime.
Yes.
And so those decisions that you make, those choices that you make, where I find the greatest challenge is, executives don't have the patience to let those decisions and choices actually play out, and yes, they pull the plug too fast. And then lo and behold, lo and behold, 6 months later, they start the thing again. They go, let's do this again. You're like, we've lost 6 months of time. Had you just hung on right long enough? And so it's not just about saying you're going to do it, but it's also sort of the doing part of it that I think that if you don't think you have a strategy, just look at what you do every day and what the priorities are of the business, and you tend to find it, right?
And you bring up a good point, and the people who work in like system dynamics and complexity theories say that the thing that makes any system, let's say your company interacting with the world, most complex is the lag between the time you do something and the things that happen, right? If they were like you said they rarely are, which is you do the thing and the thing happens and then the results happen immediately, life would be a lot simpler. And one of the problems of there being a lag is that people lose confidence along the way and say, this must not be working, therefore I'm gonna shut it down, and then they never figure out what would have happened if they wait. Which again is another reason for kind of having a conscious strategy. Like if your strategy is kind of unconscious, it's just we're going to do a bunch of stuff and see, then you have sort of no way of knowing whether you should pull the plug or you should give it more of a chance. If instead you say, we're here now and we want to be over there, up much higher later, and we know that we're going to have to make a series of investments to do that, because here's how consumers feel about us now. We'd like them to feel this way. The only way we're going to make them feel that way is if we do this kind of R&D, let's say, and this kind of branding, and improve our distribution channel. Oh, okay, that's going to take, it's going to improve like this. It's not suddenly going to go, whoop, we decided it. It's going to go like that. You can then have a greater ability to be confident that we should wait because you thought about what change would have to happen and what is realistic about that change happening. If you don't do all of that thinking work, you'll just pull the plug and try something new, and then you'll pull the plug and try something new, and that's never that's if strategy is what you do, strategy is flitting around like a butterfly.
Well, it's I feel like it's two sides to the same coin. Changing directions too quickly, or too frequently, let's say, for maybe no rhyme, no reason, just because I've lost confidence. Like,
yep.
That once again, I always learn when we're together, like that's a great way to describe it. Is it patience or is it confidence? And I actually think it's more confidence than patience. But the other is the status quo, that sort of, in a beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In an expert's mind, there are few, right? I've used that a couple times. I know you like it. And that expert's mind is the status quo. Like, I don't want to rock the boat. Right. The beginner's mind is, and you don't have to be like, I'm going to rock the boat all the time, but I have to be willing to say what we are doing, the choices we made, I have given it an appropriate amount of time, and I don't think it's working. We have to come up with another plan. Yes.
And that is why, by the way, I think it is so important to write down those assumptions. So if on day X, you say, I believe that if we make these investments 3 years from now, we will have 25% greater sales. If you don't write it down, right, you get to 3 years out and sales are up 17%. You'll say, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what we planned on, right? Because you just ex post rationalize kind of everything in life. And so it's super important to be able to say, because you may say after 3 years, it's 17 rather than 25, but here's why. I can understand. That's pretty good. Let's stay the course. Or you may say, we needed to get 25 to break even with all these new investments. It didn't work. Therefore, the logic of what we did was flawed. We have got to change that logic now, not wait for 3 or 4 more years for it to work out. That only happens if you write it down. I promise you.
Well, and then that leads to this next kind of, as I was preparing for our time together today, the other side of that is that I think there's this misperception, in my opinion, obviously want yours, that if it's not perfect, then the strategy isn't right.
Yeah.
Right.
No. You got no convincing to do, Tiffany. I think that's one of the challenges. It's of what I think of as the technocratic view of strategy, right? Which is, okay, we don't have a strategy. Not true. You do. We don't have a strategy. It is now time to sit down, and we'll get everybody together, and we will do all of the analysis and all of the thinking to come up with the perfect strategy. And then we'll commit totally to that perfect strategy. That's how strategy generally is done. Like if you ask of 1,000 times strategies done, kind of what's the number one, that would be the number one mode. I find it not helpful. One, because you can't predict the future to that perfect extent, and two, it tends to be confusing. It's sort of like, well, what is perfect? Have we achieved perfection, or have we not just found it yet? And so we should study some more, and we should argue some more, and we should think some more about what that perfect thing could be, because we do have to commit for years and years to that thing, and so we better. So you get yourself all tied up and twisted up, and I think perfection is the enemy of betterment, and I believe in betterment. I believe that if you are moving forward, improving your strategy, then if you keep on doing that every year, you will get to a great place. And I often tell the story of the guy who won the Professor of the Year most often while I was Dean of the Business School was not me. It was a nice man named David Beatty, who had been a previous CEO and come back and taught. And he taught a second-year course, and second-year electives had 13 sessions, 13 two-hour sessions. That was the course. And David simply had a rule. He surveyed the students after every class to get the opinion, and at the end of the year, whichever was the 13th most valuable class in the minds of the students was eliminated. No questions asked, no rationale for why it might have been low, whatever, gone. And then then he would come up with something to replace that with. And it just turned out that by doing that, did he make the course perfect? Did he overhaul all 13 sessions? No. He just took out number 13 and improved it. And it just became essentially, by students' views, the best course among the hundreds of courses that were taught. And he was the perennial winner. And people would analyze, well, does he have this personality? Is it because he's an expert? No, it's actually betterment. Just
it's the beginner's mind too. It's the beginner's mind too, right? Like I'm just not going to be fixed on it. And I also think that it leans into this. It's not that the class or course was bad.
Yeah. No.
It's that it could be better.
Yeah.
So, if I'm, you and I do keynotes, and, if I always ask, like, what is something, before, like, I'll say, what does success look like? When I get off that stage, I want you to say, Tiffany was absolutely the right person for us to put up there for this reason. Like, I want to know what that is. Like, what does success look like for you? And then I always go back and go, what's one or two things I could have done differently to make that presentation better? Less slides, talk slower, the images were too small, like whatever it could be. And so it's always tweaking just a little bit, right? If you get better by, I think it is like 0.1% or 0.01% every day, by the end of the year, you're exponentially better, right? Yep. And so it's the same thing with strategy. But I think you have a great way of kind of organizing that betterment, right? Yeah. And so because I think, again, it's not your strategy is bad. It's not that you don't have one. It's how do you just get a little bit better on whatever it is, whatever those things are that you have identified that need to be better.
Yeah. Yeah. And I use very old fashioned kind of a tool, a Pareto chart. I just say, tell me, and this is what I will do with a new CEO I'm working with. Oh yeah, here you've got it there. I would just say, where is the pain level highest between what you wish were happening and what is happening? Because what is happening is a result of all the choices you've made in the past. It's producing an outcome. And let's just say, I don't know, our market share in younger under 30 buyers is 12% versus our 30% overall, and we actually want it to be a leading edge indicator, so we'd like it to be 35%. It's 12 versus 35, and that keeps me up at night more than anything else, right? And here's my second, and here's my third, and it's the usual Pareto chart where 80% of the problems, the pain, are in the first kind of 2 or 3. And so I say strategy should be about taking the first bar on that chart, which is a problem. A problem is a gap between what you wish were happening and what is happening, and go work on that. Don't say, we have to have a perfect strategy. We have to do a refresh of our strategy. No. Those are all too big, abstract, will just get you confused. What will keep you focused, because it's painful, right? You're trying to make the pain go away, trying to make the pain stop. What'll keep you focused is, what different set of choices do we need to make that first bar go away? And when you've got that in hand, focus on the next bar and the next bar. And as you're doing it, you've got to make sure that your answers fit with one another. It can't just be randomly off in another direction. But as long as you do that and focus on the big problems, your strategy will keep getting better and better and better and better. And others who are trying to do grand, perfect strategies and getting themselves tied in knots trying to have perfection will just fall farther and farther and farther behind.
Well, it's this relative importance of the problem, right? Because you could list 50 problems and go, where do I focus first?
Yeah.
So, it's the relative importance of that problem. If you fix that problem versus these other 29, does it have the greatest impact?
Absolutely.
Right. And you may be directionally correct. Like, is it going to be perfect? No. Like, are you going to nail it? No. But if you're like, look, the trick here is first you have to uncover what the problems are. Right. And I think that's an opportunity for, I believe that the biggest problems in any business, well, I always say, watch Undercover Boss.
It is a good show.
It is a great show for you to understand how there are problems happening in your business as a leader that you are not aware of.
Yes.
Because to use Tom Peters, Management by Wandering Around, from his book In Search of Excellence about H. Hewlett Packard a gazillion years ago, is if you're sort of behind your desk, right, you don't know what the problems are. The problems are in the minds and hearts of those in your front lines. They sort of know the importance of the problems more than your spreadsheet or your dashboard will tell you. And if you can uncover them, then you have to say, I had this conversation with a CEO who was on his way out of I think he's the largest. I think they're the largest software company in the world. You can figure out who it is. And he said to me, he said, Tiffany, like we are a this and a that first company. And I said, I don't know, Steve. I went to a state school, but you can only have one first. Right. And so he's like, and he chuckled, but it was really that. What is your biggest problem? Like that, right? And then your next, some way to sort of organize that and then working your way through. But what I like about it is it's not one and done and next and right. There is a thinking behind it's where to start, but then what to do. So maybe you can.
And just what I was going to say too, Tiffany, is that some people, when I say this to them, say, yes, but what if management in this process identifies the wrong problems? They're really not solving the right problems. And I say, if that is true, the answer to that mega problem is they're the wrong management, right? But and I generally believe they're not, to be honest. And they may have them mixed up a little, right? If you ask me, I'd say 3 is 1 and 1 is 3. But if they start working at big problems, they'll learn by doing, because I'm a real believer in learning by doing. They will learn by doing. Oh, there's a connection between the first and third bars, right? If you said, no, we won't start until you have those problems defined absolutely perfectly and we have proof that they're the top 3 problems, you'll never get started. So just get started. Understand that it's not going to be perfect. You said it, Tiffany, and you're absolutely right. That chart you showed isn't going to be perfect, but at least if it's directionally right, directionally close enough, you get started, you start knocking off problems, things get better, and you live to fight another day. But not only live to fight another day, you fight that second day in better shape than you were the day before. You're stronger, you're more nimble, and you do it the next and the next day. So it's a very pragmatic rather than technocratic. It's more of an entrepreneurial approach to strategy than a technocratic approach, and that's what I'm always for.
Yeah, and I'm going to quote you on this. You say the mindset of betterment focuses on the journey from the choices producing the current painful gap to enacting a set of choices that eliminates the gap.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's just the current choices, the gap, the journey, and the desired outcome.
Yeah.
Like all coming
And
together.
yeah. And again, here the understanding that it's a journey is so important, because one of the greatest problems in strategy is what follows a successful set of choices. What often follows a successful set of choices is nothing, right? It's like, we made this great set of choices, and then you just ride them for too long, and then eventually somebody else, replicates them, or the world has changed enough that those choices aren't fitting as well, and then you stop and say, oh, we have to have a huge rethink of our strategy, which then takes 3 years to do your rethink, and then another 2 years to put it in action, and you're dead by that time. If instead, after you made those great set of choices, you still did the Pareto chart and said, man, things are going great, but a couple of things here have got us worried.
Yep.
This set of customers over there are doing something weird. They're buying software as a service, and we're selling licenses. Hardly any of them. And we're selling lots and lots of licenses. But the problem is, that's growing, and we don't even participate there.
Right.
If you did that while you were raking in the loot from selling licenses, you would be on top in 20 years from now. If you didn't, somebody else will be on top. And so having this is sort of betterment, and it's a journey. When you quoted me, it reminded me of the journey. Think about it as a journey. It's a journey that never stops. If you want the journey to stop as an executive, if you want the journey to stop, that is telling you something super duper important. Retire, right?
I was going to say.
That's
Yeah,
when
I was going to say. Yeah.
business journeys stop, when you retire. If you're not on a journey, you should retire. And if you don't want to retire, make sure you see it as a journey where you do that chart every year. You knock off the biggest problem, just like David knocking off the worst lecture, and you will be on top for a long time.
Well, the other thing I think that betterment solves is if you're constantly striving for perfection. Hubert Joly, who's the former CEO of Best Buy,
Great guy.
is absolutely not a fan of perfection. Like, he's just like, if we were chasing that, we'd always be disappointed. And so betterment is kind of like these little wins that are happening all the time. It's not this long 3-year strategic goal where you're slugging it out for 3 years and then maybe you're still there, maybe, right? Or, to your point, it was a 30% goal, but you hit 17. And so it's sort of like, wah, wah, right? Like, so I did all that for nothing,
Yes.
or so the betterment is more
Failure.
of that. You get all these wins, and it keeps people motivated. It lets them see that even if it feels a little, back and forth or up and down, or we don't know what we're doing as leaders, but if you continue to see these little wins, you have far more confidence in the decisions that are being made. And maybe if you have a really great leader, you're participating in those decisions, right? You're participating in picking what are those gaps, what will it have the greatest impact on. And then when you get your people engaged in this journey in a more meaningful way, I mean, that's where the magic happens for me.
And executives will often, of publicly traded companies, will often complain about the capital markets, and they're being so unreasonable and the like. Capital markets are the most unreasonable when you do something giant and then coast. Because what happens is, if you release a fantastically successful product or piece of software or whatever, the capital markets just say, wow, that was fantastic, jerk your stock price up, and then 10 minutes later ask, what have you lazy slobs done for me lately, right? So
I was going to say, very Janet Jackson. Like, what have you done for me lately?
Yes, exactly. I'll use that. But they're happier when you as a company are continuously improving. I tell that to new CEOs when I start working with them. I say, if you want to be a CEO for 10 years and you have a choice between doing absolutely stunningly brilliant things that take your stock price from 100 to 300 in the first year, but then you're out of things to do and you stay at 300 for 9 years, you won't be around in those for those 9 years, because they'll fire you. Right. If instead you get to 300 in 10 years by steadily improving, you'll be a hero. Your company will be in better shape. It'll be confident, and the capital markets will be happy with you and confident of you. So this sort of idea that we have to make the master stroke that solves all problems and takes care of things doesn't actually work for the ecosystem in which you operate. And the capital markets are an important part of the ecosystem. And that's why, betterment, just work on it. Just keep working on it. And everything you said about the confidence is so right. And you're a long-time athlete, and I mean, the difference between going into a competition feeling confident, not cocky, feeling confident, versus feeling like, oh my God, I'm in over my head. This is super tough. You'll just perform that much worse, and it'll be a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so maintaining the confidence, and I think, again, from my understanding of him, Joly was like revered completely by his employees, who felt like what? Losers? No, they felt like winners. Not because of a master stroke, it's because they were doing better every day. And the same would hold for strategy.
Yeah, and the employees were engaged, which goes back to sort of what I was just saying, right?
Yeah.
Well, we are at time again, and so if for everybody watching, I hope you've enjoyed show 8 of this series, Playing to Win: Practitioner's Insight, with my friend Roger Martin and I. And I just want to say thank you and wish you a better, in the spirit of betterment, a better tomorrow in whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. I don't want you to feel like you're out there slugging it by yourself. We're trying to help and make it better for you, so you have the right language and tools to go out and sort of be the best leader or individual contributor you want to be. Roger, anything you want to leave everybody with?
That was a great closing, Tiffany. I will not gild that lily.
All right. Well,
but thanks for doing this again, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.